Hey there and welcome. Today I'm going to walk you through a really fun flower and vine design in Pysanky. This one is particularly easy, especially if you know the basics of Pysanky. And for those of you that might get a little stressed by having to make straight lines or follow an intricate pattern, this one is for you. I'll share a couple different ways to make some flowers, a couple different vine options, leaf options, that and with lots of different color combos you can play with. I hope this one will be particularly fun. All right, let's jump in. Okay, today we're going to work with this color combination, and we're going to begin by placing some larger flowers randomly around our egg. We'll then go back and fill in with a few smaller flowers. Then we'll do our vines and our leaves. To begin with our large flowers, we're going to start with a circle. It's about maybe just a little bit larger than the size of a pencil eraser. To begin our petals, I like to think of just making a large open U, right? Kind of looks like a chemistry symbol. Then all we need to do for our petal edge is add just that little wiggle jagged line, right? Next petal, same thing. Think a large open U. Connect those with our jagged line. Just continue this around. I like to think of these even as you would a garden. You add your foundational plants first, and then you can fill in with little annuals. Okay. At this point also I should mention I'm using a fine-tipped Kiska stick. I think that for this particular design, the fine-tipped Kiska is the easiest. Right? One more petal. And there's our first flower. Don't worry if we have a few openings here. Those will be perfect little spots to pop in our vines and our leaves later on. All right, for our next flower, I'm going to show you a little tip. If for any reason you're having trouble trying to space your petals, here's an alternate option. Again, we're going to begin with our nice circle, right? This time, we're going to add 3 small dots, almost in the shape of a triangle. We're now going to use these as little navigational tools. So when we begin our open U's, this dot will now be the center of the bottom of that U, right? Add our petal edge, just go on to the second one. Again, using the dot as our center. And don't worry about the dots sticking out. We'll add those into our design later. One more. That dot was not quite centered, but it's all right. And then at this point, all we need to do is go in with each of these openings and add a petal. This version includes 1 extra petal, but it is just another option to play with. See which is easier for you. And just as things in nature have an organic feel, we're not going to worry about if our lines are perfectly straight with our flowers as well. All right, let's just continue these flowers. Let's add a couple more. Just again, randomly space these around your egg. Okay, once your large flowers are added, now we're going to go in and add some smaller flowers. You can certainly continue to just make smaller versions of what we've already done, but I'll give you a few more different design options just to play with. Again, we're going to begin with our circle, a little smaller. With this one, you're going to want to think of the circle having a north, south, east, and west. So we're going to add our petals. These are going to be thinner, right? And just continue adding these little petals on each side. Again, I think it helps to think of your circle as having a north, south, east, and west. And like we did before, we can go back into each of these little openings and add the rest of our petals. I think these look a lot like little cosmos flowers. Great. All right, another flower option. Begin with our circle, and just like we did before, we're going to think the north, south, east, and west. These I'm choosing maybe just a little fuller petals. Okay, this time, instead of adding petals into each of these openings, all we're going to do is just connect those two with a little wiggle line, right? They don't look like much now, but once we add some details later, they'll really end up being kind of charming. Okay, our last flower option is going to be our daisy. We're going to approach it in the same way. We begin with our circle. It's just that the petals will have different shapes. And again, to help us navigate our petal positions, we're going to think north, south, east, and west. Again, just adding these petals, these easy little petals as we go. Terrific. Okay, once we have all of our flowers placed where we'd like them, next we're going to go in and add just a little detail to each of our flower petals. I like to start with the larger flowers, and we're just going to add 3 little dots on the edge or close to the edge of each of our petals. These are going to add a really fun sense of dimension. All right, and just continue those again on each of the larger flower petals. We're going to want our dots to hug this edge of our petal, not too close so that they really pop, but also leaving enough room to come back and add our stamen in the next color. All right, let's talk about these smaller flowers. I'm going to see if I can fit 2 into each petal. And if they touch, not a big deal. It's just adding some dimension and sweet little detail. Again, this is much easier if you're using the fine tip Kiska. Now this little fella, we're just going to add 1 to each petal. And then you can come in and maybe add 2 inside this little edge. Just play around with it and have fun. See what you like doing. Same thing here. This one, instead, I'm going to put 2 in each petal. And then within the ruffle, or what I'm calling the ruffle, I'm just going to add 1. So once you have your dots in, now let's play around with some of the center of our flowers. So for this one, I'm just going to put a simple dot, right? I'm going to share different options and then you can play around and see what you like the most. For this one, I think it's fun. Let's change it up and we're going to create like a small little, what I like to call lattice. Add little lines one direction, flip it around, and add a few more, right? So they're similar flowers, but it just kind of adds just a little bit of visual interest. So for this one, I'm just going to add a dot. And then this one, I'm going to go back. Add a few little lines. Nice. All right, I think we're ready for our vines and leaves. I like to begin by just connecting our flowers, any of our flowers, with sweeping lines. A lot of this design is going to be about what you want to go where, right? So just embrace the creative fun in that. Sometimes it's helpful to think of your design as a floral arrangement, and now we're simply adding the greenery. Okay, the leaves. They're like small versions of our daisy petals. And we're going to continue these up our vine, alternating them on either side of our vine, right? And any little place where you see wiggles, that's a really good place to add some of your leaves. I tend to like the leaves on one line, at least to all face in the same direction, meaning these are all facing up and out. All right, let's play with this line. Do the same thing. I'm going to add leaves on either side of the line. And then because this is a nice open area, right, we're going to fill it with the end of our vine just by adding a few little leaves here just to kind of cap it off. What's great is anytime you have any little dots, any connections, bends, it's a perfect place to pop a leaf, right? I tend to like to add my lines in a vertical way. I think the movement gives a bit of a sweep and it's really pretty that way. Another example, I really like this curve. I like the movement of it. And add our leaves on either side of our vine. Let's try another one. All right, from our daisy and just scoop up. And then from here, maybe we'll go in here. See, these little openings are great. And you have room for leaves. All right. If this is starting to feel like doodling, then good. All right. Let's just say all of a sudden we have kind of a wiggly line and we can't get this straight and we don't know. Let's just say it's a little off the rail. We can do another vine that way. We can certainly do another vine here. And even with this, it's nice and easy to go in, add our leaves, and you'll see how the wiggles things that are uneven will actually just add to the charm. Right? So don't let the runaway lines freak you out. Just incorporate them into your design. Make sure you're not holding your breath. Sometimes when I start to make straight lines, I hold my breath. I'm going to add some leaves in this direction, just for fun. Okay, just other ways to think of our design. I don't want this flower to feel like it's just sitting here on its lonesome. So I'm just going to connect it to this other flower. Great. Now, when you have these nice open spaces, this is a perfect place to add some vine, right? Some greenery, some fillers. Just like you would add in your garden, perhaps. You add annuals, or what do they call them? Spillers and fillers. These are our fillers. So we can just continue to add. Fill up this space. And here's a perfect example. See where this looks a little awkward? Well, let's just add something here. You don't need to, but it adds just a little fun, right? Now all of a sudden we've got motion here, we've got some more design. Let's just continue to play, continue to connect flowers. Now, as a reminder, everything that we have done thus far will remain white. Whatever color the eggshell is at the time that we're applying the wax, that is the color that will be retained. So right now, everything, some of these outlines, everything will remain white. So we're just going to continue to connect some of the flowers, creating branches in spaces that need a little something something. Give yourself permission to not know where you're going and to enjoy being able to create as you go. The more you do this, the more fun I think you'll have, the more confident you'll become, and the more you'll make it your own. Now, if you're happy with how your vines and your leaves are looking, let's pop our egg into the first color. I like to use either yellow or gold. Okay, once you've pulled your egg out of the gold or yellow, all we're going to do now is go into each of our flower petals and add some little lines. And I like to think of these as little stamen, right? Little flower stamen. Simple little lines on each of these petals. And since we're adding these while our shell is yellow, all of these will be yellow and add a really nice little pop, right? Let's go on to the next one. Again, same thing, just continue. Simple little lines. On each petal. And any of the little dots we made to help navigate the placement of our petals, as we add these stamens, those will just disappear into the design. Now, let's go in and add a few of these similar little details into our cosmos. I'm just going to get 2 little ones in each petal. It doesn't matter if they look like they're a little smushed or a little bit together. They will just add a lovely sense of dimension, simply just even being yellow. Fun, right? All right, let's talk about these little babies. I'm going to do the same thing, just add 2, and then maybe just 1 here. 2 and 1, just to mix it up. Right? Great. Now for our daisies, this one is a little on the large side, so I'm just going to add a little pop of yellow in the center. And I think before we go on, because these daisy leaves are a little larger, I'm going to add just a little punch of yellow on each of them, just for fun. And again, these are all just suggestions to play with. Just continue to have fun making it your own. And maybe for the smaller daisies, you can just go ahead and fill in the entire centers yellow. All right, moving on to our leaves. I'm going to share 3 different options to play with. First of all, we can keep our leaves completely open as is. The other option that we can play with is a little more traditional, and it's just a simple little line that goes about halfway up. I like to think of it as like a little, maybe a little vein, a little leaf vein. Put these in each of the leaves. They just add a nice little sense of dimension, a little fun, a little pop of color. Okay, our third option, other than leaving them open and adding our little dash, is to add little diagonals. These are kind of a fun option and a little more playful perhaps, right? And what we want to do is the leaves on one side of the vine, the lines, the diagonals all want to go in the same direction. And then the diagonals on the leaves on the opposite side of the vine, we just want to alternate those to go out. So these go down and out, these go down and out, right? So we have our 3 different vine options: the open vine, our little veins, and our diagonals. So if you're happy with how all of your flowers look and your vines and your leaves are done, let's pop our egg into green. So I've pulled my egg out of the green, and the only thing we're going to do at this point is just fill in each of our little leaves. The color green I used for this egg is a light green, and I did not leave my egg in the dye very long, simply because I like this bright green. But you can certainly leave your egg in for longer, or you can pop your egg in, pull it out, check, see what color you like, then pop it back in a little bit longer until you get the color saturation that you'd like. Now that you've gotten all of your leaves filled in, we're going to pop our egg into the red dye. Okay, the last little bit we've got to do is simply to fill in our petals with wax. This way our flowers will all remain red. To fill in larger areas, I like using the medium-sized Kiska. I find it's a little bit easier to fill in larger areas. We're also going to want to leave the center leave that nice and open so it will take the last color that we'll pop our egg into. Again, we're going to want to keep the center of our flower nice and open. Just continue to fill in these little petals. Okay, once all your petals are filled in with wax, let's get ready for our final dye, turquoise. So if we put our red egg directly into the turquoise, there are times it will end up turning this beautiful brown color. Sometimes it'll have a little bit of an olive tinge to it. But if we would like to take our egg all the way to the nice turquoise blue that we talked about earlier, then I'm going to show you one little step to do in between. I've put a little distilled white vinegar in a cup. I'm going to gently add my egg, let it sit in the vinegar just slightly. Then we're going to use a soft toothbrush and just gently begin to remove the red dye from our eggshell, right? You can also use dish Dawn soap and lukewarm water, but for the red dye, I find the vinegar is easiest. What we're doing right now is sometimes referred to as washing back. When adding dyes in Pysanky, you're always going to want to go from the lightest color to the darkest. And in the order of colors, light blue is generally added before the red color. But because we wanted our flower petals to be red and the final background color to be the turquoise, all we need to do is do a little quick wash back, and then our shell will be ready to take the lighter dye. Make sure you rinse your egg real well, dry it, and you are ready for your turquoise. So once we pull our egg out of the dye, all you need to do is begin to remove the wax, reveal your beautiful flower and vine design. And if you work on raw eggs like I do, you'll need to polyurethane your egg and then blow them. Any information on how to do that, just check out my video, The Basics of Pysanky. The link is below. And there you have it. I hope that this has been fun and you'll be encouraged to play around with the different color combos, with the different flower patterns, different ideas. I hope you'll be inspired to continue to play with this and make this design your own.